Greetings everyone, this is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage, and I'm bringing to you another machine that I recently picked up. It is not ready. I'm not going to be sewing with it because I don't do that until I've gone through and reconditioned, overhauled all of the machine. But you are looking at a Viking Husqvarna sewing machine. This is model 19E, and the 19E was part of a series of sewing machines that the Husqvarna company introduced. And I don't know when they introduced them in Europe, but this one was sold in North America, and it is early 1960s. So anyway, that's essentially around the time of this machine being introduced. Now, as I mentioned to you before, European sewing manufacturers were small. They always had a small presence in the vintage era anyway. They had a small presence in North America. Some of them, like Eki and Elna would team up so that they could get distribution. Because people, just like with cars, people wanted to know that, hey, can I get service for my product? And so one of the advantages that they had was that they had free arm machines. Now, I'll talk about this in another video, but essentially the idea that you could have a sewing machine that had a free arm, and I'm going to remove the little sewing deck here, which is incredibly simple. All free arm machines should have, if they have their original sewing deck, these decks often get lost, they get separated from the machine, but this one had its original. The last free arm I think I showed you all was the Bernina. The Bernina record, 730 record. And I think I mentioned to you that the Bernina has one of the most narrow of the free arms that you can find. And the next one that is still relatively narrow is this one. Now, this machine was made by the Husqvarna company in Sweden, and it's got the little Swedish crown here, and I'll have to look up and see what this means. And it was, again, the Husqvarna company, many of you know it for making all kinds of things from chainsaws to lawnmowers, and they make lots of other machine type products. But in these days, they had a sewing machine division, and they made sewing machines. The term Viking, I believe, may have been special for North America in terms of their branding, if you will. Now, of course, you access your bobbin down here, and this machine did not have a bobbin case, nor did it come with a foot pedal or foot pedal cord. But I've had one of these before, and I've restored one of these before, and I thought, it'd be nice to find one again. I don't see them very often, and sure enough, this one came up, and I thought, okay, and I'll bite the bullet and start hunting for, again, parts for European machines. Once you get them, they're fine. But I can't just run down to the sewing store. But I'm getting ready to find these parts online, and I should have them. They should be shipped to me soon. So they're not impossible to find. You just, like I say, they're not. You don't go down to your fabric store and just ask for, a foot pedal for this machine. Now, what to say about this machine? It is in a really gorgeous sort of an emerald metallic green color. It has a number of features, and I'll show some of these to you. Now, when I first got this machine, I was checking it, right? And I turned the knobs, and they moved freely. If they didn't, I would stop right there. But everything, these are moving fine. And a couple of things to say. This, of course, is stitch length control. Let me zoom in, give you guys a little bit better picture of what I've got here. Now, one of the cool things about this series of machines is that once you get past the number 1, which is a fairly short stitch, you can actually dial it down further. There's even a half point, and then even increments of a half. They get really down to the nitty-gritty. Your reverse is right here. And if you push in your reverse, those of you who may have these machines, this is kind of interesting to note. The last one I did when I first got it, I remember pushing it in, and if you push it in a certain way, it will hold. And that's because it was designed, for some odd reason, for people to be able to keep it in reverse. I don't know why. But you don't have to. All you have to do is push in, and it'll release for you. But if it ever does that, and it goes in and stays, it doesn't mean it's broken or having problems. It's actually designed to do that. Like, for example, if I push in and slightly down, not hard, just in, it stays. If I push in on the upper part of it, it pops out. By the way, this is a general point for any of you who have vintage sewing machines. Anytime you have a reverse feature, especially those that are button types, they work really well. But when you push them in, don't just let go and let them slap out. Okay, push them in and then control hold in as you release it, and let the spring do its thing. Don't be rough with them. They hold up very well. Obviously, this thing is 55 years old, 60. Now, what else to talk about? You have needle position. Not all vintage machines have it. Many of you may not even care. But if you do, this of course is the center needle position. Let's see if I can get, I don't know if it'll show up here. It's a little, so it's in the center. If I move to the left, I don't know if you guys saw this, but the needle just moved to the left. Then I can move it to the right. It makes a nice solid click. Now, what else do we have? We have stitch width control. Of course, it's on 0. And 0 is for when you're just doing straight stitch. And then, of course, as we move it all the way over to 4, that would be the widest stitch. On the back of the machine, which I'll show you in a minute, there's a cam that allows for, that cam is there to allow for zigzag, blind stitch, and also multi-point zigzag. This little dial is for lowering the feed dogs. And just as with virtually every vintage machine that I have ever put my hands on, sure enough, it is a little stiff because this is something that just didn't get used often on virtually any machine. So instead of turning it, I will wait, and once I've overhauled the machine, she'll work beautifully. It probably needs a little cleaning. It mostly is probably starved of oil, which is the case with lots of these, or lots of vintage machines, period. Over here, you have your stitch tension dial. Very easy to read. Give you guys a little, and then of course there's my check spring. And one of the things I always do is very gently and carefully, I always check the check spring just with my finger. It's very, very strong, very, very bouncy, just like a check spring should be. And here, of course, is your take-up lever. The thing you see, let's zoom back out here. The thing you see turning down here, of course, is the shuttle. The shuttle is what your hook attaches to. Excuse me, your bobbin case, the hook, I'm sorry, I misspoke. The shuttle and the hook are here, in this case, are all together. And then your bobbin case goes straight in. And Husqvarna advertised this as they basically say it is jam-proof, meaning thread won't jam in there. I don't know that that's entirely absolute, but it's a pretty cool claim, and they're known to be. I remember the last one I restored, the only other one, and the stitches it made were just beautiful. So hopefully this one will do the same. If you go to change your light bulb, it is wonderfully simple. You literally just pull this lever down, and the light bulb, instead of being over here in the needle bar area, it's actually right centered over the machine. And then once you replace your bulb, this bulb may work fine. I don't know. I haven't tested it yet. It simply goes back up, and there's a nice tension on there, so you don't have to worry about that. And you've got your light switch is right here. Well, let's see what else to say. I think I'll turn the machine around. You guys can see other sides of it. Moving over here to the left side, of course, is your little compartment that holds everything from your pressure bar tension adjustment which is actually on a dial inside. And you have, of course, your needle bar and your mechanicals there. And this particular door, some of them require a set screw. It's fine either way. This one has its little hinges that it swings on. Let's see. We will move. Let's move the machine once again. You guys can see the back side. Now, this is the cam that I was telling you all about. And this cam is built in, and you will notice that it, of course, if you want zigzag, you set it there. And notice that the cam revolves around the little dot. So the dot is where whatever is lined up with the dot is what you're going to get. So here you have blind stitch, and notice it stops. And this is a good time to talk to you guys about this. I've mentioned this in the past with machines like Singer's 400 and 500 series. Sometimes you have knobs that turn. Sometimes you have knobs you must pull out to turn. Some knobs you push in to turn. This knob you don't have to push or pull, it turns. But it only turns when one of these stitch patterns lines up with the dot. So I'm holding it. If I try to keep going any further to the left, it won't. Don't force it. It's not meant to. But notice if I want to turn it to zigzag, wonderful. It turns easy. To the right again for multi-point zigzag, yes. And it's not going to want to turn anymore. And so you have to be very intuitive and approach this with caution. Now, if you have the manual, it's not an issue. Make sure you read the manual and pay very close attention to this. Once you're aware of it, it's not a big deal. It's just like anything else. It's not a touchpad like an iPad or something. So, be respectful for the machine and learn its little features before, don't go in strong arming, because people do that. Let's try this. Don't do that to yourself. You don't want to create more work than you need to. Okay, what else to say? It is capable of double needle sewing. There are access screws. I can take this panel off, and I will, to get inside to do some of my maintenance. You will see it has made in Sweden. Very strong motor on this machine. And this cover, I'm very pleased to say it's not busted up like a lot of them. This cover is basically the cover for the motor. And it basically is a housing. The motor is underneath. And you can get access to this piece, but you access it with screws underneath, just like you do on the Bernina. It's not hard, but you might look at it and think, well, how am I supposed to get in there? There is a way. This is the power cord that connects to the machine, and it comes straight out of the housing because it's directly wired to the motor. This, of course, is the outlet for the plug, and of course I'm waiting for one. I hope to have one soon in the mail. And then on the side here, I wanted to, well, let's go up for just a second. It's an interesting hand wheel design. I really kind of like it. It's kind of funny. It looks like a hockey puck a little bit. And it's actually smaller than those on the Bernina. But this machine has some interesting pieces. Unlike the Bernina, there are two screws here. And each of these screws, when loosened, allows a side cover to come off, and you can get access to the belts, to the motor itself, if you don't want to take the back cover off from underneath. Oh, let's see. And then, of course, your bobbin winding is handled here. This machine also has, we'll see if it actually shows up here on camera. This is an oiling point. But what's interesting, and you can't tell this, I may be able to get some photos when I take this off to do the maintenance and overhaul, but there are little horn-shaped tubes. And so not only do you put oil here, it doesn't just drip. It directs it. They're like little baby funnels. And they exist all over this machine. I think it's one of the nicer things that I really like about the design of this particular Viking model. Now, one of the things to mention to you all, if any of you are familiar with the 6000 series of Vikings, Vikings kept using the same shuttle and bobbin system for a very, very long time. I would say 20 years, maybe even 30 years. Don't hold me to that. Actually, I want you to see it from this angle, and I'll explain why in a moment. Now, one of the things that is most impressive about this machine and the way it was designed is that it is made with a combination of both aluminum parts, such as the base and the sewing deck, which is also made of aluminum. And I tested it with a magnet because I was curious to see what it was made from. But I want you guys to look at something. In terms of industrial engineering and production design, this machine is fascinating to me. Now, if you look here, notice where the free arm joins the main body of the machine here. From here all the way, notice the side, there's no side door here. There are other ways to get to this inside the machine, but this is not one of them. You have this side piece, and then it goes all the way across to the top to the side door. That is all one piece of steel. It was cast in what is called monocoque, which is just, like I say, that just means one single piece. They didn't have to weld it together. And that is just, again, it may not matter to you. You just want a nice sewing machine. But in terms of the quality that was put into its production and what it cost them to make this machine had to have been extraordinary. And again, later machines, later Vikings, they would use metal, and they would increasingly use more and more plastic as the years went on. But everyone did. They were not alone in that regard. But yeah, this is a machine I don't see often, but it's one of those that, I don't know, I am drawn to it for some reason, and I never tell people what is attractive and what is not, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I like all of the machines I work on, and this is one of those that I think one of my viewers mentioned to me, it must be tough to have some of these wonderful machines and then have to see them go. And that's true, but I'm not a collector. I rescue machines, I give them the restoration and overhauls they need, and then I find new homes for them. But this is definitely one of those that, just like the little Kenmore I was talking about, went on and on about the other day. And this is purely aesthetics, right? They make gorgeous stitches, but so do a lot of machines. I mean, I guess I could really say all of the sewing machines I restore make beautiful stitches. Some of them are more for quilters, some of them are more for sewing, backpacks. But for me, I don't know. There's something about this machine that I really like, and most of it is simply design. So I can't really recommend it based on that. I would never do that and tell people, oh, I think you should buy something because I think it's cool looking. But it does have some wonderful features, and a lot of its controls are intuitive. They just seem, fairly easy to access. And again, this particular model, you'll see on the bottom here, I'll pull back on this little spring, and I can put the sewing deck in its place. And really, if you have a free arm, many people have free arms, don't even use the deck. A lot of them use them, and they use them in combination with other machines. But maybe you do. Maybe you have a special table that yours fits into. But anyway, this is another recent addition to my collection of machines waiting for restoration. Takes a lot longer to restore a machine than it does to talk about them, I can tell you that. But anyway, I appreciate you all watching. If you have a Husqvarna, or a Viking Husqvarna, as they are known in North America, feel free to leave your comments and tell us what you think of them, what you like, what you find interesting. One of the last things to show you all is the feed dogs. I don't know that I have ever really talked much about the feed dogs on any machine, but This particular model has feed dog rows. It has this one, it has one in the back and one on the front. So it is a pretty strong machine in terms of how it moves fabric around. Anyway, sorry, I couldn't resist talking about that. Again, just one of the things that I think is unique. All of the machines I restore have some really unique features to them, and this one is no exception. So there you go, guys, a Swedish-made Husqvarna. If you get a Husqvarna that is new today, they are not made in Sweden anymore. Sorry, but they're not. But there are tons of them out there. And this one will be going through the restoration process. And stay tuned, because the next time I put this machine in front of the camera, I hope to be showing it off and showing you how it sews, and hopefully finding it a new owner. So thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate you staying tuned in. Please subscribe to my channel. If you do, you can be notified when new videos are coming up. And I appreciate all of you watching and sharing your own comments.